I am definitely less formal than everybody else. I don't have a PowerPoint. I don't have anything else. I think this, I mean, and everything that Betsy and Brenda have done to put this full lineup together has been great. We really appreciate you guys kind of replacing the table walk around. I know I speak for our group. I really miss just kind of being able to talk around either the meetings or around the tables and kind of have our sidebars. So because I'm filling kind of two spots here, guys, I mean, I know we've been kind of on gallery, we've been muted, like maybe this is the time we'll talk shop and we'll talk about how the fall went and how some of these pieces got incorporated, integrated. Let's kind of have a collaborative here, and a lot of you guys, you know, I've called a lot of you. It sounds like Ricky was the Inogeni spokesperson for Middle America. If it's Magewell, if it's Inogeni, the first part of this is just going to be kind of how the USB-C or the USB to HDMI capture cards got integrated for coaches. And then I'll show you guys kind of what we took it from the next level. And then did a Zoom room deployment using the DTEN technology. As you kind of hear some things thrown around, I mean, we really accomplished what we needed to this past fall because we were able to take whatever our second signal was, our coach's video, our projector, our video, the TV screen, whatever would have been in an office. And we tricked the computer to using that as a webcam, and it really allowed for the audience to have a better feel like they were in a room. And that was accomplished with, you know, splitters, capture cards, and everything else. And then so when you hear Magewell, when you hear Inogeni, Logitech has a screen share device that they claim, and it's a HDMI to USB. What you're really trying to do is just convert that signal and get it to the computer as a webcam. So I will probably continue to say Magewell. Betsy and the team do not have any left because we have everyone left in North America sitting in our office. Probably the same thing with Inogeni. It sounds like those are all sitting near a lake in Ohio right now. But what you're really trying to do is just, again, convert the HDMI to USB. So that's the capture card piece to it. And then and it really doesn't care once it converts to that USB. It doesn't matter your video conferencing platform. You could have Zoom, Microsoft Teams, you could have WebEx, Citrix, whatever it is. And we had LogMeIn when pandemic first started in March, and we quickly converted to Zoom. But I've been on Teams meetings, and this all works the same because it doesn't matter the signal on the front end. Computer recognizes it as a camera, and that's what's going to go out to the meeting. The same way that the video conferencing solution doesn't matter. When we get into the second part, we were Zoom, so we then migrated to Zoom rooms. Microsoft Teams has that same aspect, and it's Microsoft Teams and Teams rooms. What we really had to do is critically look at, like, we needed something to work from March to June and get us to summer. But then while summer was going on, we had to try to figure out, we think we're going to be in the building, but chances are we aren't. How do we turn our buildings into more of the business style conference rooms and allow for more of a presentation and a collaborative meeting in a meeting room, draft room, staff room, position room, whatever it was, that you'll have an audience that's certainly not on site. And as we, you know, evolved more and more here, we were able to just pick up shop and go to another state. And it was, fortunately, everything had been purchased ahead of time, and it just kind of fell into place. So a lot of those pieces got thrown into the mix. What I'm going to show is just kind of, you know, I think we've all seen it, but this is how we arrived at the HDMI USB capture workflow. Was when we started Zoom, we knew what it was like for when coaches had meetings. So what I'll show you guys is just kind of Zoom's version 1.0. And this is why we knew we had an issue, because when we tried to share video out to a meeting, it tended to look like this. And we saw it a little bit, and again, it's not, I mean, it's just how screen share works, that the quality wasn't what we as the video guys would have wanted. So the screen share is up there. The detail looks great. If I start to draw on the video, the pixels and everything are true because you're truly sharing your screen share, your second screen, that window, whatever it is, in a fuller res. But as soon as I start playing my video, it looks fine to me. And as the presenter, I have no issues at all. I can't imagine that you guys can critique and watch the film with the first version of what Zoom had, right?
Looks perfect.
Yeah. And for a lot of, like, some people were okay with it, right? We certainly weren't. We got lucky that sometime in April, Zoom, caught up to what a lot of people were trying to do, and they gave us the option to optimize for video. So I'd have to guess that many of us have just, those Zoom users that we have, and when I say Zoom, we're saying Zoom desktop. A lot of the Zoom users know to click that box to optimize video. And this is Zoom 2.0. And I will say I'm not 100% on the HDMI USB workflow. Not every single one of my coaches and users have a capture device. So we still use this for when we had a safety meeting or a Nichols meeting, or my road scouts, if they're going to host video, they're showing it this way as well. I think depending on what you guys see here, this has probably become acceptable. And this is now bandwidth dependent. I happen to be hardlined, and it's going to be variable as it goes and what have you. But this is probably how a good majority of people watched film, especially in the pandemic. And some people continue to do this when we traveled to hotels and had to just kind of make it work in a hotel room for road travel and things like that. But we didn't settle. That wasn't good enough for us, right? Like it was good, but I had to have been convinced that there was better. And the reason why we knew better, let me flip to a camera, and we'll go back to, as I sit here, as I go full motion, you guys see me move my hands, right? So we kept asking ourselves, like, why is this handled in Zoom better than our video, and how do we get closer to that? And that's how we got to the HDMI and USB capture. So let me take a step back here. So what I'm showing you guys right here, this is how a coach would go to his house. And that's just his laptop and the TV that's at his house. Or when we went on the road to a meeting, that's the laptop in the middle of the meeting room, and there's the projector at the front of the room. This could be a coach's office, and it's a desktop and his office TV, or it's our meeting rooms, and this is the desktop meeting room station, and that's the projector at the front of the screen. So that anything that I see over here, that's the end goal, right? Like the video that I'm showing, the PowerPoints that I'm showing, I don't want to have to continue to screen share or choose different windows. I just want what I see out to the gallery. So at this point, and just kind of for full effect, because we are going to treat this as a webcam. We've all gotten used to being here in the gallery. So if you guys could just go to your Zoom client, if you're on a computer or a desktop, you're looking for the gallery view up in the upper right-hand corner. You want to change gallery to speaker view. What you want to make sure that you're seeing right now is this screen. My camera is either full screen on you, or you've got the thumbnails at the top, but I'm taking over your screen. For those of you on an iPad or a phone, if you double click and you get out of gallery view, double tap on my camera and you can pin my video and it'll overtake your iPad. That was one of the things we've taught our coaches and players that are the audience how to do in order to get the full screen and force full screen video in their viewing application. So for all of our deployments, coming off of that coach's station, off the primary display, we had the HDMI out, right? That was going to either your projector, your TV, or whatever it is in your meeting room. So what we're doing here now, and we got there from the Inogenis and the other capture cards, is we're going HDMI out, and we're going to split it. In this application, we're just splitting it 1 to 2, right? So one HDMI out is still going to go to the projector, still going to go to the TV, still going to go to whatever your secondary display was, while the other HDMI out is going to go to your flavor of choice, your hardware of choice for the capture card. And that's that HDMI in to the capture card. So then it passes out USB back to the computer, okay? The capture card, this particular capture card, the Magewell, it also has the opportunity and the options to plug in a microphone, so you don't have to be dependent on your laptop microphone. It's got the option to plug in additional speakers. So if you had meeting room speakers and this was a meeting room setup, you're going to be plugged into the ceiling. It'll allow you to choose what different audio that you're going to leverage in your Zoom meeting. Okay. Anybody got any questions so far on the setup? So in Teams, I didn't use Teams nearly enough with the camera select, so I can't tell you for certain how easy it is to switch around. In Zoom, by hooking this Magewell up and whatever the USB is, in the bottom left-hand corner where I could stop and start my video, I can choose that caret. And in addition to video settings, I now have multiple cameras to select from. I've got my integrated webcam, which is the webcam that's on the front of the laptop. Because I've got this camera, I've also got a second camera to choose. But how you would set it up and you'd have the different models selectable, I know which input is pertinent to this device, which again is taking the same signal that's going up to my projector. So as soon as I select that camera, and as soon as I play video, I think this is what are we giving away to give the fuller frame video? It's definitely not the sharp detail. Is it good enough? I could probably make out the 59 here, but if we had shoulder numbers, probably couldn't make those out. But this is where, as we rock back and forth, this is why we wanted to make sure that we could convert the HDMI and make it be a camera for our video conferencing. So now if I'm a coach in my office, again, it's whatever's on my TV or whatever's on my projector, it's what I see in the meeting. If I had a PowerPoint and I just shared it to my second screen, I just click through it. And again, the sacrifice is text is not as sharp as screen share, but for a coach who has been accustomed to anything that they see on a second display being out to the meeting, this was just natural, right? Fortunately in Zoom, there's a keyboard shortcut. For all the Zoom users who have used this, for us it's Alt-N, and that quickly changes with Zoom Active. That'll quickly toggle between the cameras I have selected. So here I am again, the front facing. Here I am just kind of with the demo camera, and I'm back to video, and I'm playing okay here. I now know how the presenters that we've had all morning feel, where it's just you're talking to yourself and it's just awkward.
Great job, Mike.
Thanks, Brett. Brett's my hype man, so that's why I keep him around.
Hey, Brack, can you switch? I mean, is it an easy switch to show this play as you're showing it now, and then show it through the Zoom optimization, just so we can see the difference in? I mean,
and again, some of this is hardware specific. I'm on a 5530 or 5520 laptop. It's a slim, but it is a solid state hard drive. Let me think, what else affects it? As the Altona guy showed, sometimes, if bandwidth becomes an issue, I would turn off a camera, because right now, if I'm screen sharing, you guys probably also have a view of my camera. Lost Zoom.
Like, you did this before you went to the hotel for Arizona?
Yeah, we did. So we found the Magewells back in it was a conversation with Luke Goldstein back in March.
You got
So draft meetings were hosted this way. This is the only way we've known. And then as we got more stock and inventory, we were able to get them out to the position coaches that were eventually going to host the position meetings back in April, May. So it was, and then we earmarked, your assistant line coach, you may need it, and everything else. This was great for us in the off-season program. And we tried everything, right? Like we looked at what enhancements we could make to our Zooms. Were there toggles in there to turn on HD for all meetings and everything else? And we just weren't getting, we found that we maxed the Zoom ability out. Well, while we were looking at all things Zoom Rooms popped up, and we were trying to wrap our heads around what the difference was there. Why would somebody use Zoom Rooms and not Zoom? And my analogy there is that, while my wife worked at Facebook for a while, and they have 30 buildings on campus at Facebook, the one building she walked me through, I probably walked by 50 conference rooms, because some of them are just big enough for one person. Some of them are your traditional boardrooms and conference styles, and some of them are bigger classrooms like this. But in business, man, they've been doing meetings virtually and collaboratively for forever, and we were just late to that party. So the more we realized what Zoom Rooms was, Zoom Rooms is a conference room solution. They didn't necessarily use that at Facebook, but it was, again, it's an option. We had a contact at a company locally. It was an integration company, and I'll step back again too. The other way we got to needing kind of a rooms deployment was that when we were talking to Perk and those guys, and him and Stober in Jacksonville, in that transition right before training camp, they had a integration company and a video conferencing company come through and fully outfit all position rooms. And it allowed them to, jump into meetings. The head coach could monitor all meetings and do collaborations that way. And so we gave them a phone call. We tried to figure out what the application was and how they were using it and what pieces they used. It came with a real hefty price tag. But it was really cool. The more we uncovered it, we realized the company just was a rebrand of Zoom. But their solution was they sold meeting rooms in a box. And meeting rooms in a box were a screen to display the gallery. They were a PTZ camera, a microphone set, depending on how big your room was. Maybe it was multiple microphones. There was a speaker integrated for audio. And it allowed you to just jump in and out of meetings and do collaborations that way. We investigated a little bit more. We uncovered the company DTEN, so that's DTEN, and realized that as much as there's rooms in a box, DTEN was selling a Zoom Room kind of all-in-one device. For you Teams users out there, there's a higher-end Surface TV. It comes in multiple sizes. It's very much a D10 competitor. And for us, we found that the D10 that we're about to show you was really the right application for our meeting rooms. And that happens to run Zoom Room software in our draft room. And for wherever we had put our team room throughout the year, putting a Mac Mini in there with running Zoom Rooms was the right solution for us, because it didn't need the actual integration and the collaborative ability to touch on a TV, but we still wanted the Zoom Rooms features that I'll show you here in a second. So it was the next step. Our IT guys were really, they gave us the access to Zoom, but we became the Zoom deployment team, the Zoom integration team, the admins on the account. And so every time we asked for something, they granted us the access, they put it on our account, and we just kind of kept figuring out a way to use it. So in any Zoom room, a Zoom room may look like this, in that it's going to have kind of your agenda, your calendar. So what you'll do with a Zoom room is maybe the same way that you do pair it with an email address and a calendar, you'll have that agenda throughout the day. So right now, and in between 11:30 and 3 o'clock, I know that there is a not only a series of virtual vendors meeting on my agenda, but I know it's a virtual meeting because I can just go to the start button. Between 1 and 1:30 on my calendar, I happen to have Sony and Mike and Dave, and at 1:30 to 2 o'clock, I've got STEM audio. So the Zoom room helps from a scheduling perspective. It helps display. And when a Zoom room is deployed, it's often deployed with some kind of controller, whether that be a Crestron system, or in our case, it's an iPad. And that controller will get you in and out of the Zoom room. What's really cool about DTEN and their 55 and 75 inch, we're seeing it at Mediarite. They've got that 65-inch planar. When your Zoom room is touch enabled, then you can actually just run your whole Zoom room from the hardware itself. So for DTEN, this is the 55-inch. They also come in the 75, and I've got a 75 in my full staff room. The reason why it's really cool and it's all in one, so behind the TV is the computer that is the hardware running the Zoom room software. So just like at Mediarite, they've got an HP computer that's behind the planar. DTEN's got a computer that is just built into the device. The speaker on the back of the TV is the speaker that happens to be integrated in this room. You could connect another speaker to it. But along the top bezel of this TV, there's a microphone array and a 4K static camera, fixed angle camera that's integrated in the top of that bezel. It does come off and clips back in case something damages it to it in shipping. Because we have shipped these to Arizona and back here, we may have seen that we've got a little bit of a false connection, but at least if the camera goes bad, you're not replacing the entire TV. And the TV, this particular TV, is touted as having 4K resolution and it's touch. So if I wanted to, I could, if I wasn't just joining a meeting that was scheduled, but I was just going to join in, just jump into an ad hoc, I could just start a meeting and I'm into that meeting with whatever the camera is that I last had. I can run everything that I can do here from these touch displays. I'll be able to do from the iPad. So once we started the demo, we saw that there was really a cool niche for this in our meeting rooms, because a position coach could touch the screen or have the iPad right in front of him and run his meeting. He's in a room by himself. So exactly what you see here, we're in a position room. I'm talking to an empty room, but if I were in this meeting and I had the gallery view, I'd see everybody's faces up here, and it feels like I have the audience. I see everybody, and then the way we integrated these in our position rooms, putting it on a TV rack and an AV cart gave us the flexibility and didn't paint us into a corner about where we were going to install these TVs, right? So this was the coach station. He's running his DV Sporter Exos from here. He's even got his document camera. Here we've got the touchscreen, the planar and Beckler touchscreen that we've always had, the Williams AV stuff now. Behind me, in a normal room, this is where his projector would have gone, but I do get the confidence because I see what's on the projector on that planar. And then in my line of sight, I would have the gallery view of my Zoom. For the quarterback room, we took this thing back in the corner, man. Put it right up against that wall, put the TV, or put the existing table right up against it. It fit nicely because he didn't need a whole bunch of room. For our D-line room, this is kind of a similar install. We put it in an area where the coach could still see it, but then we cleared out all of his tables, all of his chairs, and gave him the wide open space that if he was going to come in front of this D10, he's got the board behind him. He's got the ability to demonstrate. He's got all the things that he can do because of that camera. So what I want to do now is I'm going to stop this video. The Mediarite folks are going to help me jump in. So now I'm going to join the same meeting from the D10 user. So anybody, hopefully you guys are in speaker view. You didn't pin this video, but give me about 15, 20 seconds. I'll transition over to D10. So no longer on that camera that I was on previously. Everything from this meeting is now running from the D10. So the audio is going to sound a little bit different, right? When I was presenting before,
I was using the 160 camera with the microphone off of it. We're now on the DTEN device, so I can't remember the exact number. And I'm certainly not a sales guy for them. It's either 18 or 16 array microphones are built in. The coverage on the microphones is pretty good. I'm not changing how I talk. I would just be on the board like I normally would be. And as I walk around the room, you guys start picking me up that way, right? Some of the stuff, and I kind of missed the huddle cam where they said there was some auto tracking to it. So if we had enabled it on the D10, right, there's a couple of different things you can do with camera control. One is you can do some manual zooming in and out. So if I wanted to frame myself up, I can control that from the iPad right here. If there was some place on the board specifically I wanted to show, then I could highlight that. But if there's always a place, if there's a couple of places I would go, I have the ability to have some presets here. So I just hit the preset and I'm gonna get the wide view and everything else. If I'm a coach and I put this in my office, in my meeting room, whatever it is, and I'm always gonna go to that spot on the whiteboard, then I hit that spot and now I go up and I demonstrate and I'm back on the camera, right? Come back over here to my presentation, control the camera and go back out to wide. For the huddle cam stuff where they were talking about auto tracking, the feature is auto framing. So as I just turn that on and I start walking around the room, it will now follow me as I kind of go around and I'm presenting and everything else. Again, some lagging, but it doesn't take two people to follow that around. So if I'm here on the board and then I come back over here, then there will be some notion of follow there. That's where the benefit of the fixed wide view 4K camera comes from, is that it's got the ability to do the zoom in and outs on its own. The same way that we incorporated that Magewell into the coaches unit, we're doing the same thing over here, but we took it a step further, right? Like if I'm in a position room and I'm sitting at my touch screen and everything that I see on my touch screen is up here, then I want that to go out to the meeting as well. So from the iPad and on the controller, if I just switch my camera and I go from the 4K to the Magewell, so now I'm on here, and with any kind of optimization, away I go, and I'm having the meeting just as if I had an audience in here. And using the planar and the point maker, we've got the same telestration devices that I would have had 365 days ago if we had players in these rooms. We took them off the AV carts, we put them back in the boxes. They made it on the equipment truck to Arizona that second day we found out. Unboxed them. The first day we were there, we put them on 2 chairs. The second day we were there, Betsy had gotten us TV stands, just mounted them on the tabletops. And without these, I don't know how we would have been able to do virtual meetings for 5 weeks in a hotel in Arizona. What was really cool is it plugged into the internet. Like we're not on any kind of crazy network where we're doing anything Zoom. If there's an internet connection and we can make that between the controller and the TV, I'm up and running, whether it's just gonna be that camera or the video that's going to it. I know I have an hour, but I don't have an hour of content. So,
Brack, how much were those D10s?
all right, so Betsy gets some pretty cool pricing. What I will say is she kind of, because I kind of see her going through what they list as. When we compared the other integration companies' solution, right? So if you go to Zoom or if you go to Teams, they'll say, go find this local integration vendor locally, right? And then they will sell you the room in the box. By the time you buy the PTZ, the computer, the microphone, the speakers, the controller, and all the other pieces, the D10 was either comparable or under what all of those other pieces would have been for the meeting room setup, right? In the draft room, we don't have the D10. So if you kind of rewind a little bit, my use case in the draft room is I have a Mac Mini. Certainly was not bought for this purpose. So this is the secret to why I asked all the directors back in off season what you guys did with the CGE Mac Minis. That Swarbrick and those guys said that they had reached end of life. So we took the Mac Mini out of the old CGE, We put Zoom rooms on, or we took it up to IT first. They reformatted it and put it on the domain. We put Zoom room software on it, and we put one Mac Mini in the draft room, one in the team room. In the draft room, right now we have an HDMI switcher that will either take the full screen video or a front facing camera in the draft room, and that sends the video out. And then we incorporated a much higher end speaker microphone setup that's mounted up on the ceiling. It's a sound bar that has many more virtual microphones that are built into the technology. Obviously a little bit more expensive than just the onboard on bezel. Meteorite, I want to say it's 4,500 for the 55 inch.
You know, I think it's selling for like 43.
Okay.
But that's likely not your price.
Okay.
You know, what we'll do is if anyone has an interest, like for instance, when we first started talking, like we'll reach out to the manufacturer, we'll do the due diligence, do some paperwork, and work toward getting you a special registered price so that we can save you some money. But for reals, because Mike, you and I were talking about basically all the parts and pieces of building these rooms, and there were a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I say the DTEN is all in one, when we stripped this room out to move it to Arizona, we grabbed the iPad, which fortunately, again, we didn't have to buy. They were three or four season-old iPads that were just sitting up in IT, and we just loaded Zoom Room's app on there. It's not any software, it's not any additional license, you just log into the room. So we got away with not having to buy a controller because we already had the iPad on site. What we did do to ensure stability is all of our iPads have an Ethernet dongle, which is $100. That Ethernet plugs into a 5-port dumb switch that is hosting, just by coincidence, the DV Sport machine, the D10, and this controller. So now we're on the 49ers network for internet, right? Just happens to be the video VLAN. But by putting the controller and the D10 on that same switch, they're now on the same network. So it's a lot easier for those two to communicate, and you don't have network issues about one dropping off the Wi-Fi, not connecting to the right device. It's just going to connect once it lands on the internet. There's a couple of USB cables that are incorporated. There's the 1x2 splitter, and there's whatever your flavor of choice of the USB capture card is. I think that's the meeting room in a box.
Hey, Brack, just for clarification, in your meeting room setup as you sit there right now, the Magewell is actually coming off of your telestration output, correct?
Correct, because in our systems, there's only one HDMI signal that goes to the projector. All of the routing happens through the Beckler, the point maker, and the HDMI split source is what's coming off of the telestration system. So
That's how you're able to see the telestrator.
correct. Or if we
Interesting.
wanted to display the document camera in this room, if we were going to go, I think it works if we were going to show the iPad. There's some HDCP compliant issues that happen around both the point maker and the Magewell capture card that iPad gets to be a little funny. So how did we steer the coaches to show whatever their content was on the iPad? Well, a lot of times it was PDFs, so they went to the coaches share, or we never really got somebody super confident and comfortable in it. But if you were on your iPad and you just joined this Zoom meeting, now you can screen share from the iPad and you're going to show whatever your playbook app is, your player link, your 360, your game plan, whatever it is. That iPad is just another attendee to the meeting. The final piece that is kind of cool with Zoom Rooms, and especially the Zoom Rooms touch ones, is you saw me go up on the whiteboard and I could do what I need to there. If you can imagine in my staff room, they keep going to the furthest place in the front corner and you can't see what's on that whiteboard. So all of these Zoom Room touch softwares have so that if I go up to the board here and I go to the whiteboard, I'm now, It's the same as if on Zoom you went screen share and chose whiteboard. It's just more front facing so that I can choose whiteboard. And now I'm up here doing a screen share type whiteboard at a better quality that you guys would expect to see on a whiteboard. I've got color options. I've got the ability that if that's not the right, I can just erase part of the line and I can continue to do some things there. Or if I'm done with a play or whatever it is, I can choose to delete the whole and start from scratch. Or when I'm ready to go back to my meeting, it's very front facing. All of my tools are on the screen for me to see, but maybe not for you to see. And so I'll go to the bottom left-hand corner where it says close for me. It asks me if I want to save or don't save. I've never tried to save, so I can't tell you what it does. But if I do choose don't save, that's automatically unsharing the screen. And now I'm back to whatever the last camera was. So in this instance, it's here. But if I was showing video, now it goes back to the video that I see in the room.
Cool.
So Brack, I got a couple questions for you. Like, you're in the team meeting, and it's kind of the same thing what Patrick was asking in a sense, but in the software itself where you can choose the camera or what it is you're sharing, I don't know if you remember, but before the season started, I was going down the NDI route. So it's very similar to what you did, but I don't know if Panasonic, I missed the Panasonic presentation earlier. I don't know if they covered NDI, but basically NDI is Panasonic's version of converting your PTZ cameras into a networkable video signal that allows you to telestrate as well over the video or anything you do. But I guess my question to you from an NDI standpoint to what you did is, were you able to teach your coaches to switch, or did you have to do it for them? Because I know it's a little complicated for coaches.
Yeah. So, and for us, again, because the iPad is right in front of me and I don't have to necessarily get up to go to the TV. In our meeting room, it's, if I'm ready to switch, it's right here. I mean, it's a switch camera, and I flip the HDMI source. It's way easier for them to conduct a meeting in their office, in their meeting room, than it is when they need to take their laptop and then they need to go somewhere, whether it's a meeting at a hotel Saturday night for the game, if they're going to have meetings here in the next couple of weeks and do it from home. When we do deploy the Magewell, and they do that same setup at home with the HDMI and the split, not everybody's 100% comfortable with what I say the Alt-N or the camera select features. We often do need to kind of coach them through every time they get into Zoom and click on the caret and go to choose the camera you want to send out. And a lot of times what those guys want to do is they want to have that. A lot of the guys are still convinced that they want to show their video and they want everybody to see their face too, not realizing how the Zoom works. So in those instances, guys are joining from an iPad with a front-facing camera in addition to the video that they're sharing out. So in a Zoom room or in a Rooms application where your controller's right in front of you, it's so much easier for them to wrap their head around. I'm either on camera or I want to show my film or show whatever I see on this screen, because like we did before, it's a PowerPoint, it's a website, it's a Word document, it's whatever. If that's what's on my second screen, that's going to be the other camera that I can switch to.
That's the DTEN that's giving you that control, right?
It's Zoom Rooms software that gives the control. The DTEN just happens to be an all-in-one TV. So in Betsy's situation in Meteorite, like where we're seeing the four of them sit around the table, that happens to be that huddle cam that is plugged into an HP computer behind their planar, okay? So that if they wanted to do something similar to me, or I don't know if Todd Green is still on here. I've seen him sitting around his conference room and in his meeting room throughout the week. It looks like they have a webcam. So you have a webcam, Todd, connected to your meeting room station, correct?
Yes, the huddle cam go that you guys did today.
And that's the same computer you're running Exos from.
Yes.
So that's kind of what's different a little bit in my setup, right? I've got my DV Sport desktop, computer, laptop, whatever it is. It's completely separate from whatever my Zoom room dedicated solution is. So with Meteorite and the 49ers, we have a Zoom room computer that has one camera available. For Meteorite, that's the huddle cam. For me, that's this DTEN 4K camera. We can take a USB capture card, connect it to the Zoom room computer, connect whatever other HDMI source it is, and then in the in the Zoom room controller, it now recognizes that two cameras are connected, and I can switch between those two cameras. Whereas for Todd, in that meeting room setup where the Exos computer is the coach's laptop I was showing earlier, and it's the coach's station and Zoom desktop, there you have to switch your camera through the application in order to toggle either the camera or the second screen of your meeting room.
Correct.
Yeah. And that's where, I start to talk myself kind of in circles, and that's where it starts to get confusing. There's Zoom desktop and there's Teams desktop that all of us have been using. It's on all coaches' computers. That's what, you guys are all on Zoom desktop clients right now. Myself and Meteorite are on a Zoom room client. That is a dedicated computer that can really only join a Zoom meeting. So that's the other downfall, is that, Atlanta, or Patrick, those guys that have been Teams, if they send me a Teams meeting, this device cannot join the Teams meeting because it only knows Zoom software and it only knows Zoom meetings. So I can't jump into a Citrix from Dallas or any other virtual meeting. It is very, very much Zoom. So we did a full commitment to Zoom as our football operation, one, because of software, and then two, hardware.
Good stuff, Mike.
Great job.
I have a Zoom user for every meeting room, and then I have a different Zoom room that's for all those meeting rooms. I could probably consolidate at this point. But what's cool is we can take that Zoom room, pair it with a calendar, and as kind of I showed you guys when we jumped in, I knew I was supposed to be in the Zoom meeting, and then it showed me my agenda for the rest of the day. That's kind of what we did for the position meetings, is on the running backs Outlook calendar, we created an all-day meeting from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., and we put one Zoom link in there, and then that way that meeting room would just join that Zoom for that day. It didn't matter that we coincidentally also paired the running back with a Teamworks account, and he got the full agenda. He got position meetings and taping and lunch and practice and walkthrough. That all showed in the calendar. But the calendar invite we created always overrode and always stayed at the top because it was recurring and it was all day. The reason we opted for that, because I've talked to like Stu and Indy, who they got in with their scheduling people about how they entered Teamworks events. And their guys got really good about putting Zoom links into the Teamworks events. Anytime they moved a Teamworks calendar event, if they moved lunch back 15 minutes, if they moved practice up 10 minutes, however the day moved around, that then deleted the Teamworks event. And so it became very cumbersome for somebody to continue to put in a Zoom every time an event changed. Whoever was doing your scheduling would have to really stay on top of what meetings they were affecting and what Zooms they were affecting to jump into. So we knew the schedule was going to change, and often we didn't get the schedule till Tuesday night for Wednesday. We just made recurring Zoom meetings on these position calendars that they could jump into throughout the day. And there were some things that we did with scheduling with coach users that allowed the position meetings to be way more front facing. We can talk through those. I talked to Patrick at length a little bit about how to do schedule fours and how to make meetings, how to make your staff meetings, position meetings, squad meetings, so that coaches, not until right now when my coaches are trying to jump into the the draft meetings that they're just kind of listening in on. If it wasn't for these, our coaches were not entering meeting IDs and passwords all year for position rooms and team meetings and offensive and defensive meetings, because how we gave them scheduling privileges and everything else. It just showed up in their Zoom accounts. We can make this a Zoom meeting, but I definitely want to, leave the other things up for discussion, the DTEN, the Magewell or Inogeni. The only other thing, and again, I know I'm sitting on all of the Magewells. I showed you guys the setup with the splitter because the Inogenis are just the single input. Fortunately, these Magewells, they not only do they have the HDMI in, but they have a pass through. So it allowed the USB to be recognized, and it was taking that signal in, and then it was also sending that same thing out. So we really didn't need the splitter. Our coach deployment with the Magewells is so much easier because they don't need a splitter. So we just intercept the existing HDMI, we plug it into the Magewell, and it comes back out to whatever the projector, TV, or whatever it was in their office. A little bit cleaner of an install, and if you've got the Magewells, you've got that luxury.
Mike, you might have said it, but what's the price on the Magewell?
There's actually several different lines. So there's a base Magewell. It's gray and it looks like the Inogenis, and it just has the input. There is a Magewell Capture Plus and a Magewell Capture Plus 4K. Either one of those pluses are going to have the in and the out. And Betsy, that's 4 and 5.
It's like, so the Capture Plus is $345. The 4K is $445. We've sold lots of both. And we've been taking, kind of went through a little lull where, well, it was probably a good thing because we bought everything there was and we couldn't deliver there for like December. And then we've been able to access inventory again. Starting, I know we've taken a couple of big orders in the last month. So fingers crossed. It's coming available again.
Mike, is there a difference between the two? Like, do you prefer one or the other, or is
No, it was just whatever Betsy had. I say that, and I think one, like if I show you guys what this does, we've seen this happen where, and I run the risk of this not coming back. Let's see here. So sometimes we'll come into a room and it shows no signal. I can't remember, and I can't promise you that it's either the standard version or the 4K. One of them tended to overheat, and you'd come into a meeting, and you'd see no signal, and the fix for it was as simple as unplugging it and plugging it back in. I can't remember if it was isolated to one particular one or one model, but at the end of the day, we didn't care if we had a 4K or a non-4K. The reason why it helped to not have, or to have at least a couple different ones, that demo I started with the camera. So I have a standard one and I have a 4 Plus, or I have a 4K. And it's so that I know that the 160 was on the 4K. The DV Sport video was on the standard one. And that just helped me better identify which camera I was selecting in a meeting. Again, we understand that difference, but really it doesn't make a difference for those that aren't going to care which one is which.
It's kind of big not to have a splitter, though. I mean, we don't have to worry about the HDMI splitter. That helps a lot.
Totally. So that's where, as long as it's a Capture Plus, and that's 345 or 445, it didn't matter. Capture Plus or Capture Plus 4K, they both have the in and the out.
Mike, are you able to rename the two modules in your cameras?
Hey, Mike, it's Dan here. There actually is software for that. Magewell, it's on their site. It's called USB Capture Utility. So we were doing something similar in a couple of our rooms, and that's what we did. We renamed you know, the Magewells to exactly what it was to make it easier for the coaches.
Mike, was it any difference with like playing a highlight or anything through any difference between the two when playing a highlight, like when audio's involved?
In my audio settings, there is a way. So that's how we did it. So I was on a separate computer in this instance because a lot of our team meeting, like we made sure for all of our night meetings we had enough space for at least for the players to get in there when we could. Okay. The one time where I remember I had to show a highlight video, it wasn't necessarily from the computer that we were running the meeting from. So in Arizona, Kyle was in Kyle's office and he was on his D10 and he had his night before the game where he talked on the camera. He may or may not have flipped the coach's tape. And when he was ready to show the highlight, I was on another computer that I had better control on. So I was on Mike Bracken's user in the meeting. And I had made sure that I set the computer audio correctly so that the HDMI that I was passing to the Magewell was the microphone that was getting picked up into the meeting. So just like there's a camera select on the stop and start video, there was the microphone select that I just made sure was coming from the USB capture card because that was the same video that I was showing on my second screen, which was the highlight video. So yeah, I definitely had to wrap my head around that one.
Well, Mike, thank you so much, and taking this time and for being so great.
Yeah,
In truth, the last 2 pages of our newest catalog, and the reason that we asked Mike if he'd be a presenter for us today, so many of those newer products were brought to us, the Magewell and Inogeni. When we ran out of Magewell, we literally bought them out in the US. And I'm like, okay, we gotta find another thing. We gotta find another thing. Call Mike Bracken, we gotta find another thing. You know, so it's been just a real touchstone for us. And so, Mike, thank you so much.
Thank you guys, because again, you know, I know this group knows, and hopefully we tell everybody else that can, like you guys are one-stop shop. I wouldn't have gotten through April to June. I would have gotten through the fall. I certainly would not have been able to be in a hotel for 5 weeks without what you guys do for us on the whole. So I know we appreciate you guys more than we can show and tell you, and we appreciate you.
That's awfully
Yeah,
nice.
thanks, Mike.
We couldn't have gotten through without you.